G'day guys, this is the next one that we're going to be having a look at. Questions I get all the time is what brushes do I use when it comes to mixed media? Now I've pulled out a few things here just so I can show you directly. These are probably the main brushes that I use. I probably could have pulled one out that wasn't quite so manky, but hang on a second. I'll grab one that's less abused. So these are the brushes that I would probably reach for the most, so you can see what they are. So this one is a watercolor brush. It holds the water beautifully. They fill up with water in all these bristles and they help hold your color, which is fantastic. This one is an acrylic brush, and I use it specifically because it's got a nice square head on it and I can get nice straight lines. That's pretty much what I use that one for. My fan brush is my favorite for getting little fine splatters, because if you've been here long enough, you know that I'm not a huge fan of the big messy splatters everywhere, but they do have their place, and that's where I use the fan brush because it gives me nice tiny splatters. These two I use for fill-in work pretty much when I have stamping down and I want to fill in or colour in, so to speak. So using a plethora of different types of mediums, I use these are the distressed watercolour pencils. There's 3 different sets of those. Hopefully he brings some more out soon. Pretty excited. I absolutely love those. They can be used in so many different ways. You can literally wet them. Let me see, I'll pull out a color. So you can literally, I have a tub of water here. Let's hope this doesn't go pear-shaped, right? So all you have to do with these is just dip it in. You don't have to leave it in there very long. That's it. And you can literally, this is Vicky Britton Foundations paper that I've got here, by the way. Get your color down. Then you can, I'm just going to pop that back in there so it stays nice and clean. You can get a lot of water in your watercolor brush. So see how it holds all the water in there, and it's awesome. And then you can just add it to it and you can create, these watercolor pencils have got awesome color payoff. Now you can make it whatever you like. I usually put my watercolor pencil on my plastic sort of palette, and I'll show you the difference with that. I've already wet the tip, so I'll try not to. So if I put the watercolor on here, so this is just the watercolor pencil. It's super duper simple. The color is fantastic. I love these things. I really cannot speak highly enough of them. And then I either use my fine misting spray, which is awesome, like that. It just gives me a nice fine mist, or I can use my brush. It's loaded up with water. Now with this one, when you're trying to create a watercolor, and I'm no expert, this is just what I've learned, leave it full of water. Don't sort of sit there and go like that to try and get all the water out of it, because that's why you're using this brush, right? So then you can mix it all together and load your brush up, and then you can just put your color down like that. This way you don't get the lines from the pencil like I got there. Just a different way of doing it. Super awesome, and you get a nice watercolored look. Now, aside from that, hang on, I didn't get paper towel. I knew I'd forget something. There's always something, isn't there? So, hey, this is real time. This is, I apologize, that's probably my Amazon delivery. I have bought some more bits and pieces. Can't wait to get my hands on those. So now the other thing you can use, the watercolor. So I can use, now let me think. I should have done that while I had that on there. Let's use another color. Why not? So I'm showing you again, this is a completely different color. This one's peacock feathers. Just dip it in there, get a little bit of color on here. Doesn't take very long. Now, when you're using these watercolor pencils, they are literally all pigment. There's no wood. These are woodless. They are absolutely magic. and you don't waste any of it. I use this pencil sharpener. It's a Prismacolor. It has a lid on it. It has 2 holes, and best part is it catches your shavings. What I then do with my shavings, so that I'm not wasting my product, I store them in one of these little containers, and that way I can use that pure pigment. I can add it to texture paste, I can add it, I can do whatever I want with it. I can even do this part without using the pencil itself. I can use the shavings to do this bit. Now, I was going to do lines. So, simple square-ended brush, just wet it. It's not a watercolor brush, so it's not going to hold tons of water, but I like to get the brush nice and wet. Pick up the color. Because I'm using this brush, I'm not so much after, and this is how I get nice, straight, square sort of lines that I can drag out. That adds to it. Then you just add a little bit more water and you can just totally fade it out as it goes down the page. Like, it's beautiful. The colors are stunning, and it's so simple. You can do so much with these on your layouts. You really can. Now, I'm going to use my Distress ink. I'm going to show you what we do with that. So I'm just going to move the watercolors out of the way a little bit. Distress ink. I've pulled out the oxide and the ink. I've pulled them both out so you can see the difference when I put it on here. So this is the Distress ink. I like to get a fair bit of ink down there so it works with the Distress oxide. Now, these are the same color. I know they don't look like the same color on the plastic, but they are technically the same color. Okay. Now, this is where I would, if I had a stamped image, I'm trying to think of what I can do here quickly. I don't really have a stamped image. I don't have anything stamped in front of me. How bizarre is that? Okay, doesn't matter. Let's roll with it. You can use your watercolor. You can use any brush for this. So if you've got an image, I'm going to use a pencil so it doesn't go all muddied. So if you've got an image like that, you can quite easily come in here, add a bit of water to both of them. Now, remember, the Distress ink is transparent, whereas the Distress oxides are not. So if you come in here straight up with the, I'm going to use a smaller, no, I'll use the big one with the Distress ink. Okay, I'm going to color it in just like a watercolor. I'm not doing anything special, right? I'm also going to show you what it's like if I just do it like that. So that's the Distress ink, and this is on the Vicky Bouton Foundations watercolor paper. Okay, then what you can do is come in with a thinner brush, and you can maybe use your oxide. See how it oxidizes when you add water to it, and it sort of leaves a chalky film, and then you can create nice watercolor center. You can paint leaves with it, and that way, you know, you can fussy cut them later on. Obviously you wouldn't use blue, but then you might be using blue. It's completely up to you. Now, this is the other thing I wanted to show you. So you can, I'm going to use a different sheet of cardstock for this, just so that I keep that bit for the watercolor. Now, when it comes to splatters, let's show the difference. If you use a big giant brush and you tap on top, that's what you're going to get, right? Some people like that. You do you. You figure out what it is that you like. Now, this is the Distress ink. This is a slightly smaller brush, right? But this is what I like, because I would hardly describe myself as reserved, but I have to say this is what I prefer. Now, I do it like that, and then I do a tap off so that I load up the brush, then I tap it off once, and then I come over and then I do, see how I've got much more control over where the splatters are going? See how I can control it and see how they're a lot tinier? You can flick like crazy if you want and go like that, but I can guarantee you, guess what I just did? I've colored myself, my computer, my microphone, everything's colored now in blue. So unless you want that look, I'm going to run with, you probably don't, unless you have a studio, which then I'm just jealous. You know, I have a craft room, but each to their own. So that's the splatters. That's what you can do with your splatters, and that's why I like a fan brush, because it gives you a much more even splatter. That's the fan brush around the outside edge there. Okay, now bring this one back over. So that's effectively that's dried, right? So you've got a nice watercolored look there. You can come back in with a finer brush and you can draw some details on top. Now this is just with the Distress ink on top of the oxide, but it leaves a really pretty effect. We'll let that sit there for a second. I'll make sure this video doesn't go too long though, because that's what these are supposed to be. They're supposed to be quick and simple. Okay, now the last thing I wanted to show you really quickly was actual watercolor, a watercolor palette. You can use that on your scrapbooking layouts. Why not? I'll use blue for the sake of keeping it with the theme. I've sprayed this previously, so it's been sitting getting juicy for me. And this is the kind of really bright, bold look you can get with just your watercolors. So you may not have inks, but you might have a watercolor set. You know, these are the things you can do. You can create all the same looks. Not all the same looks, I shouldn't say it like that. But these are the different mediums that you can use to get very similar looks. And they all dry down beautifully. So have a play, you know, have a look, see what it is that you want to do. What look are you creating? What look are you after? At the end of the day, is it going to be what you want? It's your layout. You do what you want to do with it. And I'm just being really, really dramatically abstract right now, just for the point of the video, just to show you, you know, you can do all of these bits and bobs, and you may not have the ephemera, but you might have a paint. You might have a paint palette, the kids' paint palette. Why not? Give it a crack. Do your own leaves. Simple. You can do this stuff, guys. Trust me on it. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Believe me. And I just want to keep playing now I've pulled this out. I need to stop. Rightio. So there you go, guys. There's a half a dozen different ways that you can use different brushes to get different looks on your layout. And which ones hold the color more? Which ones spread it out more? Do you like watercolor pencils? Have a play. Figure out which one you like the most and which one you think you'll use the most. I will be back with another video real soon. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.